consider an equal proof of his noble independence, bold patriotism, and vast information, being, to say the truth, much more interested in its domestic effects than in its public results, or even its intrinsic merits. 26th. Soldiers were sent to the house of the Countess de la C a to arrest her son in law, but in compliance with the entreaties of his family, he had gone into concealment. I found them in great affliction, but they are so accustomed to political persecution from one party or another, particularly the Countess, that her courage has never deserted her for a moment. He is accused in Congress. In the Senate House a proclamation is made by the president, anathematizing his principles. Even the printer of the pamphlet is thrown into prison. Nothing else is spoken of, and the general irritation is so terrible that it is to be hoped his place of concealment is secure, otherwise the consequences may be fatal. On pretend that many distinguished men here hold the same opinions, but their voices, even were they to venture to raise them, could not stem the tide of public indignation. The most offended are naturally the military men. In short, Señor Gutierrez, who has been passing 4 years abroad, in countries where hundreds of obscure scribblers daily advocate republicanism, or any wild theory that strikes their fancy with the most perfect security, was probably hardly aware of the extraordinary ferment which such a pamphlet was likely to produce at the present juncture. 27th. A few days before Señor A left us, we went up to the canal in a canoe as far as Santa Anita, to show him all that remains of the Chinampas. It is as pleasant a way of passing an evening as any that I know of here. We drove lately to Mexicalcingo, where there is a cave in which there is a figure of our Saviour, which they pretend has lately appeared there. The excitement concerning the pamphlet seems rather to increase than diminish, but Señor Gutierrez has many devoted friends, and the place of his retreat is secure. There is little doubt that he will be forced to fly the country. 29th. Señor Don Xavier Hechavarria, Minister of the Treasury, has sent in his resignation. Being a man of large private fortune, extremely simple in his habits, and the most amiable of men in domestic life, I believe that no minister has ever thrown off with more unaffected satisfaction the burden of state affairs, or will enjoy his retreat from public life with more true philosophy. I have been so much interested in the affairs of the C a family, that I have forgotten to tell you of my having obtained permission from the archbishop to visit the Santa Teresa, accompanied by one young married lady who has a sister there. The archbishop desired that our visit should be kept a secret, but it has oozed out by some means or other, probably through the nuns themselves, and exposed him to so much inconvenience, and such a torrent of solicitations from those ladies who, having daughters or sisters amongst the nuns, are naturally most desirous to see them, that I fear, notwithstanding his good nature, he will put a veto on all my future applications. You will think I pass my time in convents, but I find no other places half so interesting, and you know I always had a fancy that way. In some of these convents there still exist, buried alive like the inmates, various fine old paintings, amongst others some of the Flemish school, brought to Mexico by the monks at the time when the Low Countries were under Spanish dominion. Many masters also of the Mexican school, such as Enriquez, Cabrera, etc., have enriched the cloisters with their productions, and employed their talent on holy subjects, such as the lives of the saints, the martyrs, and other Christian subjects. Everywhere, especially, there are Cabreras, an artist somewhat in the Luca Giordano style, the same monotony, facility, and fa presto Luca. All his pictures are agreeable, and some strikingly beautiful. Occasionally he copies from the old masters, but rarely. Jimenez and Enriquez are not so common, and some of their productions are very good, and deserve to be better known than I imagine they are in Europe. They are a branch of the Spanish school, and afford striking proofs of the extraordinary talent of the Mexicans for the fine arts, as well as of the facilities which the mother country afforded them. But it is in the convent of the Profesa that the finest paintings are, and there I cannot enter. The galleries are full of paintings, the most part by Cabrera, and C n speaks with enthusiasm of one exceedingly beautiful painting in the sacristy of the chapel, said to be an original Guido, being a representation of Christ tied to the pillar and scourged, in which the expression of pure divinity and suffering humanity is finely blended, and well contrasted with savage cruelty in the countenances of his executioners. But most of these paintings are neglected, and so falling to decay, that it is pitiable to look at them. The Santa Teresa, however, has few ornaments. It is not nearly so large as the Encarnación, and admits but 21 nuns. At present there are, besides these, but 3 novices. Its very atmosphere seems holy, and its scrupulous and excessive cleanness makes all profane dwellings appear dirty by comparison. We were accompanied by a bishop, Señor Madrid, the same who assisted at the archbishop's consecration, a good looking man, young and tall, and very splendidly dressed. His robes were of purple satin covered with fine point lace, with a large cross of diamonds and amethysts. He also wore a cloak of very fine purple cloth, lined with crimson velvet, crimson stockings, and an immense amethyst ring. When he came in, we found that the nuns had permission to put up their veils, rarely allowed in this order in the presence of strangers. They have a small garden and fountain, plenty of flowers and some fruit, but all is on a smaller scale, and sadder than in the convent of the Encarnación. The refectory is a large room, with a long narrow table running all round it, a plain deal table with wooden benches, before the place of each nun, an earthen bowl, an earthen cup with an apple in it, and a wooden plate and a wooden spoon. At the top of the plate a grinning skull, to remind them that even these indulgences they shall not long enjoy. In one corner of the room is a reading desk, a sort of elevated pulpit, where one reads aloud from some holy book, whilst the others discuss their simple fare. They showed us a crown of thorns, which on certain days is worn by one of their number by way of penance. It is made of iron, so that the nails entering inwards run into the head and make it bleed. While she wears this on her head, a sort of wooden bit is put into her mouth, and she lies prostrate on her face till dinner is ended, and while in this condition her food is given her, of which she eats as much as she can, which probably is none. We visited the different cells, and were horror struck at the self-inflicted torture. Each bed consists of a wooden plank raised in the middle, and on days of penitence crossed by wooden bars. The pillow is wooden, with a cross lying in it, which they hold in their hands when they lie down. The nuns lie on this penitential couch, embracing the cross, and her feet hanging out, as the bed is made too short for her upon principle. Around her waist she occasionally wears a band with iron points turning inwards. On her breast a cross with nails, of which the points enter the flesh, of the truth of which I had melancholy ocular demonstration. Then, after having scourged herself with a whip covered with iron nails, she lies down for a few hours on the wooden bars, and rises at 4 o'clock. All these instruments of discipline, which each nun keeps in a little box beside her bed, looks as if their fitting place would be in the dungeons of the Inquisition. They made me try their bed and board, which I told them would give me a very decided taste for early rising. Yet they all seem as cheerful as possible, though it must be confessed that many of them look pale and unhealthy. It is said that when they are strong enough to stand this mode of life they live very long, but it frequently happens that girls who come into this convent are obliged to leave it from sickness long before the expiration of their novitiate. I met with the girl whom I had seen take the veil, and cannot say that she looked either well or cheerful, though she assured me that, of course, in doing the will of God she was both. There was not much beauty amongst them generally, though one or two had remains of great loveliness. My friend, the Madre A, is handsomer on a closer view than I had supposed her, and seems an especial favourite with old and young. But there was one whose face must have been strikingly beautiful. She was as pale as marble, and though still young, seemed in very delicate health. But her eyes and eyebrows as black as jet, the eyes so large and soft, the eyebrows 2 pencilled arches, and her smile so resigned and sweet, would have made her the loveliest model imaginable for a Madonna. Again, as in the Encarnación, they had taken the trouble to prepare an elegant supper.